is Kristina, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself and my journey. So, I am a single mom. I have two boys, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I have been separated for about a year now. Um, and it has been very interesting. I guess this whole journey has been very interesting, to be honest. Um, I have Um, I'm living on my own for the first time now. I had been in a relationship slash marriage for almost 18 years. So since I was 23. So really, I didn't really know myself and as an adult. So this has been a learning process for me. Understanding, my likes, who I am as a person, what my passions are. You know, when you're with someone for so long, you kind of merge and you don't even realize what makes you an individual. Like, what are the things that you like yourself? And so, this whole year has kind of been this learning process for me of that. But I would say that my healing started during the pandemic, as I'm sure it started for a lot of people, in that was like this catalyst of like where everything stopped and the world froze, and you kind of sat with yourself and you were like, what am I doing? Or what am I doing with my life? Or, if you were, for instance, I was working and I had been working as an accountant for probably 16 years or so. And it was very much doing the same thing every day over and over again, very cyclical, um, working a lot of hours, and you kind of get lost in it. And weeks go by, months go by, years go by, and if you're doing the same thing over and over again, you kind of lose yourself in that. And so the pandemic definitely kind of halted everything for me and made me kind of see, you know, if look at my life essentially and say, are you happy with this? Or start asking yourself these like existential questions, um, like, what is it that makes me happy, or what am I doing to improve my happiness and fulfillment or whatnot? And so, um, my dad, he had passed away in that first wave of COVID related deaths in the beginning of 2020. And I had just recently moved um, from LA to San Diego, and I was waiting on the construction of a house that I was purchasing. And so at the time, my dad passed away. I hadn't talked to him, I would say, in 10 years or something like that. And prior to that, I hadn't talked to him for like another 5 years or so. So even though I had loved my dad and was very close to him as a child, I was estranged from him. And then um, I never kind of uh, mended that relationship. And unfortunately, I never got the chance to say bye. At the time of the pandemic, it was very, um, people were whisked away to hospitals, put on ventilators, um, and then essentially they passed away, and you got to see them on FaceTime for 2 seconds. And then don't even get me started about, what happens afterwards, like what had happened afterwards in terms of like tracking your loved one and things like that. The whole thing was just crazy. And so during that time, I had a nanny for the pandemic because I was too scared to put my son at the time, who was like, I don't know, like 8 months old, into back into daycare because we didn't know anything about COVID and whether or not he could get it at daycare or whatever. And so my nanny had suggested talking to a medium to see somebody who had helped her with the passing of her brother. And so I was like, well, let me reach out to this woman um, who might be able to help me uh, have some sort of closure or healing for the passing of my father. And so I ended up calling this woman, and we had a really long conversation, and it really had very little to do with my dad, and more so to do with my healing or lack of healing, right? I realized that it was like the first time that I was like zooming out of my life and like looking at myself and being like, what's going on? Like, you're a very unhappy person. And so, through working with this woman, I did a lot of inner child work, a lot of shadow work, really looking at the foundation of my belief system and understanding where that came from, and then using affirmations to kind of rewire my brain into changing that belief system into uh, something that was more in line or aligned rather with um, me and more in a more positive way. And that took a long time um, because, I was a pretty broken person um, looking back at myself from this vantage point. Um, I was in and out of therapy for like 20 years since I was a kid. And I was a very anxious person. I was a very depressed person. Had tried so many different antidepressants and so many different anti-anxiety medications. I had ADD, or at least diagnosed to be so, and was on that type of medication. And of course, working and expecting to produce. Like, it was like I was on this like little cocktail of like prescriptions to just keep my sanity together, right? And keep me functioning, right? As a broken person, like on a functioning level, right? And so at the time, I really wasn't on any kind of medication because I had a child and I had to get off of all of that when I was pregnant. So really, I was trying to keep it together during that period of time, and afterwards too. And so a lot of that work, really helped mend some real fundamental issues that I had. And over time, there was growth. Um, I made a lot of improvements. I was becoming like a happier person. Um, but it still took a while to get me to that point. And it wasn't until summer of 2023, I went and I sat in Costa Rica and I did ayahuasca for 4 ceremonies, and that blew up my life for the better, of course. If something is in terms of a structure is existing that needs to be rebuilt, you can't just keep building on a very bad foundation. You essentially have to just raise it to the ground, or at least I'm speaking just in terms of my own experience. Um, Raise it to the ground and build anew. And I didn't know that. Like, I had made these very, very powerful intentions during the ceremonies and thinking, yeah, not a big deal, whatever. And it was like I welcomed, one of the big ones was, I welcome death and rebirth, which literally came in the form of like ending my marriage, selling my house that I had dreamed of living in for my entire adult life, and starting new in in a way where I had no and still have no idea like what is gonna come like ahead in the future for me. Like, I had no plan. I very much was a person who always had a plan. I always had plan A, B, C, and D. And if A failed, then go to B. If B failed, go to C, and so on and so forth, because I thought that I could control everything. And if I could control the outcome of everything, I could essentially be safe. Um, and and that wasn't real. That although on paper everything looked okay, I was just a very, very, very unhappy person. And it got to a point where I didn't even realize. My state of existence was just that. And I just thought that that was how my life was going to be, and that there wasn't going to be any essential, like, great improvement per se. Like, it was just going to essentially be, I hate to say mediocre, but that's what it felt like compared to how I feel right now. So, yeah, after going to Costa Rica and doing ayahuasca and essentially um, separating from my husband at the time, moving, living in an apartment on my own for the first time in my entire life, um, essentially doing everything independently for the first time in my entire life, has been definitely a learning experience for me. And it hasn't been all bonbons or whatever, but I've discovered, where I need to strengthen, where I need to be accountable, where I need to show up for myself, um, and where I need to be disciplined with myself. And I have a friend who told me that discipline doesn't necessarily need to be punishment. At least I always thought that discipline was a form of punishment, but for me, discipline, um, in being disciplined in certain things that I do on a regular basis, I find that that in itself is helps me and provides stability for me to be able to um, feel like I'm grounded and that I'm here and that I can be more present. And so um, that plant medicine begot more plant medicine. And so I went to Peru in January of 2024. Um, and I went to the Amazon jungle, and I was there for, I think, 10 days. Um, and there was no electricity, and it was literally in the middle of nowhere. And I had my little tambo, my little hut, and you couldn't talk to anybody for that period of time. And I did 5 ayahuasca ceremonies there, and I dieted a plant called Bobansana, a master plant. And that in itself was incredible. The post dieta integration was so challenging, but even all of the integration that followed that has been so enlightening. I'm still learning, and I believe it's from all of the medicine that I took. And then again in March, I went to Valle de Bravo, and a few hours out of Mexico City, to a women's retreat to sit with more ayahuasca. And so um, it has been a lot of plant medicine in the last 12 months, but so needed, because I will be honest, I was not in a place, I don't know, that was very sustainable, to be honest. I um, was very heavy, um, and I know that a lot of that was energetic, obviously, consuming food. Um, but there are a lot of things that I was just carrying and I wasn't like allowing to release. And so um, a lot of the work that I've been doing and that I've done has allowed me to be able to identify where I have patterns, some of which are not even mine per se. I do believe that a lot of our issues are generational, that we get from our parents, and they got from their parents, and their parents got from their parents, and who knows where it all started. But I have children, so I also am motivated to not want to pass on those behaviors to my children and wanting to lead by example. They say, uh, do as I say, not as I do doesn't really work. So I have to be the living example for my children and for myself, really, first and foremost. So, yeah, this has been a really fruitful year. And I got to travel a couple months ago. Has it been a couple of months? At the end of September, I went to Europe for the first time by myself on a solo trip. And I just did a bunch of Airbnb experiences and met a bunch of incredible people. Um, in the past, I would have never done that. I mean, I've traveled with the retreats by myself, but it was always to go to a place that had already something preset, as opposed to literally just going and saying, okay, I'm here. What am I going to do next? And that was incredible too. And so I feel as though now I'm in a point in my life where um, I could really explore uh, what my likes and dislikes are, my passions, something that will give me purpose aside from my children. Um, because ultimately, as a parent, I existed before my children. And when my children leave, I'm still going to be here. So, what is it that I'm going to feel passionate about that's going to sustain me for the rest of my life? And maybe not one thing. I'm sure there will be many things. But at the end of the day, searching for that instead of being in this loop every day doing the same thing over and over again. It's like, what do they say? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I feel like a lot of us are in that position, or at least I'll just speak for myself. I was. And so I'm doing things differently now. And I always felt I didn't necessarily want to record content because I would think to myself, oh, like I'm so new in this journey. Like, what do I have to offer? What would people be able to benefit from? And I still feel like I'm always evolving. I'm not by any means an expert at all. Um, but I figured, why not share what I've been through and what um, what things have helped me along the way, and maybe they resonate with somebody. I mean, surely they will not resonate with everybody, and that's okay. Um, but at the end of the day, sometimes it takes somebody to say something in a different way, and the light might go off. So, hey, why not? Um, so you are if you're a parent, if you're a woman, if you're a person who's literally just looking for more, then maybe there might be something here for you. I don't know. Who knows? Or um, so yeah, that is a little bit about myself. I will definitely go into more detail in future videos. I just wanted to introduce myself to kind of give a little bit of backstory as to where I'm coming from. And of course, I'm a person, I'm evolving every day. I might say something today, and tomorrow I might be like, you know what? That was interesting, but I think my perspective has changed a little bit, and I believe this now, or whatever. I think we're all allowed to have different opinions. I think that we're all allowed to change our minds. I think we're all allowed to evolve, um, and we're all allowed to share our experiences. And so I invite you to share your experience and where you are, in your life. And um, if you're searching for something outside of the day to day, that loop that we sometimes find ourselves in, and comment at the bottom and like and subscribe if you're interested in hearing more about my past and my journey, and definitely, my plans for the future. So, mwah. Thank you so much for listening.